My name's Mary Mitchell. Today I'm going to show you the videos that I took in September when I drove my camper van through southern Massachusetts and followed the Henry Knox Trail. This is the second ending part of the trail. The first part from Fort Ticonderoga down to Westfield, Massachusetts, I followed in June. In the video for that, I'll put a comment in the links below. That's called Part 1, Henry Knox Trail Part 1. So this is Part 2. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. This map of New England shows the location of the 56 monuments marking the Henry Knox Trail. Back in 1926, as part of the celebrations for the 150th anniversary of the Revolutionary War, the states of New York and Massachusetts placed these monuments. Last June, I followed the route from Ticonderoga to Albany and just past the New York and Massachusetts state line. I vlogged that in Part 1. More recently, in September, I continued from Westfield, which is Massachusetts Monument number 7, all the way to Cambridge. To give you a little review, here's the page with a map in my children's book, Henry's Big Kaboom, that shows you the route that Henry Knox took. So in December of 1775, he picked up 60 tons of heavy artillery. They put them on barges and carried them down Lake George, which is like 135 miles long. Then using ox carts, they carried them over the roads. They crossed the Hudson 4 times, went over the Berkshires, and on to Cambridge. The image is actually of Boston, but George Washington was waiting in Cambridge. Whereas Henry Knox left journals for the beginning part of this trip, we have no exact records of where he was at this point. Since there were many British sentries along this part of the route, he had to stay hidden. Historians have done their best to piece together the route, and they've looked at such records as tavern records, where the soldiers, when they bought drinks along the way. So this is the route that they think they took, and usually I found myself on Route 20 or Route 9. So I got to Westfield in the last video. I'll start with West Springfield, and then I go to Springfield. Large cities are really intimidating, especially when you're driving a 21-foot van. And then the cute town of Wilbraham and Palmer, and up to Warren, and then Brookfield, Spencer, Leicester, Worcester, another big town, Shrewsbury, Northborough, Marlborough, Southborough, Framingham, and then it gets kind of condensed here where I go through Wayland, Warren, Waltham, Watertown, all the W's, and Cambridge. So this is the page about Knox picking up the guns at Fort Ticonderoga. And this talks about Old Sow going down Lake George. There's George Washington waiting. It's December, January, 1776. And this is the 80 yoke of oxen pulling 40 wooden sleds. And that's how many there are. That's actually the 40 sleds. So as you see these pictures, imagine all those oxen and all those carts. So to get the big picture, this is a topographical map showing where we're going to go. When Knox got to Springfield, he had to cross the Connecticut River. So the first marker I'm going to visit is in West Springfield, which is on the west side of the river, and then I cross over to Springfield. I would be looking for 20 markers. I'd already located them on maps, and I'd notified the libraries of every town that I would be visiting that I would be passing through, and I asked them if they wanted a copy of Henry's Big Kaboom. The librarian in West Springfield was really enthusiastic. So I first found the marker, which is number 8 on this map here, and then it was just a few blocks away to the library. I'm in West Springfield, facing west. So Henry Knox would have come from the direction of that sign. The library is to the right, and right over here is the monument, and the Connecticut River is over there. I thought I'd put my book on top of each monument so you knew I didn't take the picture from the internet. This is the photo that West Springfield put on their Facebook page. I'm standing between their director on my right, Tony, and the youth librarian on my left, Terry. I crossed the Connecticut River via the Memorial Bridge into Springfield. Then I jogged over to State Street, and continuing east, I passed the library to get to the monument. Monument number 9 faces State Street, right in front of Springfield's Armory, which Henry Knox also set up. I parked Ramsey in front of the Armory, walked back to the street, and took this picture. The Springfield Public Library looks just like the public library in Boston. The librarian had never responded, so I wasn't expecting a warm and fuzzy reception like I got at West Springfield. Still, they graciously accepted my book. The fun part for me was walking through their Dr. Seuss garden on my way back to the van. Continuing east on State Street, you come to a Y in the road. If you continue left, you follow the Old Boston Road, which is probably the route that the train of artillery took. Or you can continue to the right and follow the Wilbraham Road to Wilbraham. Both lead to Wilbraham's Main Street. Where Main Street crosses Route 20, you'll find Massachusetts marker number 10. I took this video traveling up Main Street, about to turn right on Route 20 toward Palmer. Earlier, I turned around, parked, and took this video from the hill. Then I went back to the library and donated one of my books. Continuing east on Route 20, you get to Palmer. The monument is on the left in a tiny little triangle in the road. Don't blink or you'll miss it. I was able to park across the street and get a closer look. Like most of these monuments, it just stands guard along Route 20. Continuing into Palmer, I found the Palmer Public Library where they were expecting me. The library had asked me to bring my ukulele in and sing Henry's Big Kaboom to the children. It was a lot of fun, but I'm not allowed to post photos of children on YouTube. Veering onto Highway 67, I drove to Warren. The public library is on Main Street, right in the center of town, and monument number 12 is just a little bit beyond on the corner of Main Street and Washington Street. The next few libraries I would say were built in the late 1800s by wealthy philanthropists. They may not be the most practical today, but they sure are cute. This is monument number 11 in Warren, and it's at the crossing of, I think it's 67 and Washington Street. I parked by the side of the street to take a few pictures of the monument and to read the placard about the old Boston Post Road. It said the street was named after Washington because he passed this way on his way to take control of the troops in 1775. He had paused at the Solomon Keyes home, and Solomon Keyes, by the way, is one of my ancestors. It was at the intersection of Washington and East Street. He wanted to confer with Captain Putnam, who's a cousin of mine, about supplying Minutemen from this area. Many local men marched to Boston the day after the Battle of Lexington, April 19, 1775. The original post road went all the way to New York and was established in 1673. Benjamin Franklin, who was postmaster later, ordered mileposts to be set out along the route, marking the mileage to Boston and setting mail rates according to distance. Some of these markers still stand. Next along the route was Brookfield. Following the Boston Road, you find yourself on Main Street, which turns right, and you are now on Highway 9. Before you make that right-hand turn, you pass a little triangle where the monument is. That's also the entrance to the town common. At the other end of the common, founded in 1867 by the Honorable Pliny Merrick, is Merrick Public Library. There's the monument, and about away is the library. The town takes very good care of Massachusetts marker 19. This is the common for Brookfield, really cute town. And the stone is down there. You can barely see the top of it. This little library is so adorable. I'm going to show you every picture I have of it. These are the benefactors, Merrick and his son. Brenda Metterville, that's not her in the picture, has been the director for 20 years, and she's taken such pride in developing this library. I wanted to move to Brookfield and bring my grandsons to this library every single day. She knew everything about the Henry Knox Trail and how there had been a reenactment during the country's 150th anniversary of the Revolution. She gave me a book of Brookfield's history, showing me a photo of that celebration. The flyleaf says that in 1927, costumed townspeople gathered on the lawn of 13 West Main Street to celebrate the installation of the General Henry Knox Monument. The next town, Spencer, has a really cute library too. It's also named after its benefactor, Richard Sugden. The monument is right around the corner from the library, and the monument faces Main Street. The new children's director at the library, Katie, told me that Spencer has a school called the Henry Knox Trail Junior High School. Henry's Big Kaboom is really for smaller children, so I decided to give a copy to the Wire Village Elementary School. Those children will eventually go to the junior high, and now they'll appreciate why it's called what it's called. As you enter Spencer, first you see the library on your left, then you see the monument a little farther around the corner, right here. I pulled into the parking lot right past the monument, which also backs up on the library. So not long after taking a selfie with my book and the monument, I headed into the gorgeous library. Like in Brookfield, the librarians here were very interested in the town and the library's history. You do not see libraries like this in California. The next destination was Leicester. We're still moving from one small town to another small town. In Leicester, the monument was right in front of the public library. The library itself is getting renovated, so I wouldn't be donating any books for the moment. I took a picture of the monument in front and moved on. You might notice that Route 9 does a bypass of Leicester. The road I've marked is Main Street. Who knows which one Henry Knox took? The marker in Worcester, which is a fairly large town, gets my most difficult to find award. I'm not going to tell you about all the wrong turns and tunnels that I took. I'm just going to show you where it is. This isn't the fastest route, but probably the one Henry Knox took. The monument is on the corner of Main Street and Highland, which is also Route 9. The trouble is that Main Street splits with opposing one-way streets. So when you get to Highland, you have to do a U-turn and go back the other way, and the monument will be to your right. It's in front of a courthouse type building that actually is called a business center on maps. I'm in Worcester in front of the courthouse. There's monument number 16, 15, anyway, Worcester. Henry Knox was actually facing that way. This is Main Street. I got confused. I thought it was on the south side of the street, but it's on the north side of the street, so we're heading to the center that way. City Hall's down that way, I think. Anyway, there's Ramsey. Okay, we found it. To get to the public library, I just continued the way I was headed on Main Street, turned left on Salem, that's the front of the library, then right so that I could go into the parking lot at the back. I had to leave Annie in the van, and it was 100 degrees out, so I dashed in, gave the book to the receptionist, and left. There are two ways to get to Monument 17 in Shrewsbury, which is almost like a suburb now of Worcester. The high road is the freeway. The low road is Route 9. Both pass over Lake Quinsigamond. I don't know how you say that. I'm guessing Henry Knox skirted the lake to the north. This is the lake as you see it from the freeway. The monument used to be right in front of Shrewsbury Library, but has since been moved across the street to a little area with lots of monuments. Since Google took this picture, the renovations have been completed. If you know what you're looking for, you can see the monument to your left and then the library as you enter the town center. Crossing through the intersection, there's a parking lot to the left behind the library where I deposited Ramsey. First, I crossed the street to check out the monument. It's in really good shape. In fact, I took a close-up of the brass plaque so you can see the image of Henry and his oxen. The guy on the right is supposed to be Henry. You can see the new addition on the left and the old library on the right. A big bronze plaque marks the George Washington Memorial Highway. Sonia, the Director of Children's Services, was very happy to receive my book. That marked the halfway point. The next day I would start with Northborough, one of the highlights. They were expecting me to bring my ukulele. At this point, the trail is back to following Route 20, which is also Main Street, both in Shrewsbury and in Northborough. I passed the library on my right, and just a block and a half farther on to my left is a town offices, and in front of that is the monument. I'm in Northborough on Main Street, which is Highway 20. And down there is the library, about 3 blocks. I'll turn left. But here's the town offices, and here's the monument. And they've got some flowers and a little flag. Oh, nice. They also have a bronze statue of a Minuteman. On the way back to the library, I passed the old entrance on Main Street, where you could see a sign that they were celebrating their 150th anniversary. I entered through the modern rear entrance, which is off the parking lot, and found Katrina, who's the director of the library. Both of us were surprised that we were joined by a friend of mine who impersonates Henry Knox. In real life, Archer O'Reilly is the secretary for the Massachusetts Society of the Cincinnati, and he loves to pretend like he's Henry. After the kids and I finished singing Henry's Big Kaboom, Henry gave a little talk.
There were a couple of interesting things about that. They, in fact, took all the loyalists, all the people who supported the king with them, the people we called Tories. Now that included every single in-law I had.
I was thrilled when he asked me to sign his copy of Henry's Big Kaboom. Next stop, Marlborough. To get to Marlborough from Northborough, you just continue on Route 20. The library is to your left as you enter town. Route 20 turns right, but I continued straight on Main Street and parked in front of monument number 19. That's Marlborough. There's Ramsey. And there's the stone right there, just as I'm coming into the village. I took a couple of photos of the stone, got back on Ramsey, did a U-turn, and headed back to the library. I passed the old entrance that faces Route 20, went around the block, and entered the parking lot at the back of the library, which is where I found Margaret, the Youth Services Director. Next stop, Southborough. My grandson's great-grandmother on his dad's side grew up there. She's in her 90s now. She remembers the reenactment of the oxen pulling the sleds through town. I'm not sure if she remembers from 1926, when she would have been 2 or 3 years old, or from 1976. To get there, I took Route 20 to Route 85, which took me south right into the center of town. The library and the monument are kitty-corner from each other at the intersection of 85 and Route 30. I parked the van behind the library, then walked from there, crossing the street to the stone. I'm at the Henry Knox marker number 20. In front of the Southborough Community Center. Southborough's down there. The library is kitty corner over there. And St. Mark's School, where my son went to school, is right there. I took some beauty shots of the monument, crossed the street back to the library, parked Annie under a nice shady tree and went inside. It's a very friendly town and a very friendly library. I liked this frog reading a book outside. Notice we were doing all this sightseeing in 97-degree heat. Next up, Framingham. I'm not sure why the route takes a jog south here. It probably has something to do with passing over waterways. From Southborough, you take Route 30, which at that point is the old Boston Road, and that connects you to Route 9. You take the Edgell Road exit off of 9, turn left, and you'll be heading toward the old Framingham Common, which will be on your left. You'll pass the monument and the Memorial Library, and then you can turn left before you get to the Common and find parking. I'm in Framingham, which is a fairly large town. That's the crossing of Route 9 right there. And I'm looking the other way, so Henry Knox would have come from that way. And here's the marker. So he would have come along here and then gone that way. The Edgell Memorial Library is now the Framingham History Center. Back in 1926, when Massachusetts placed markers on the Henry Knox Trail, it was the local library for Old Framingham Common. It was built back in the late 1800s, about the same time as the Brookfield and Spencer libraries. They had brochures about the Henry Knox Trail and where people could stay while following along the route. Then back to Route 20 and the old Boston Post Road for the W towns, Wayland, Weston, Waltham, and Watertown. Wayland is the only town that has two monuments, number 22 and number 23. Number 22 marks the entrance of an old stone bridge that's a little bit hard to find. First, set your GPS to Potter Road in Wayland. You can see the old stone bridge on this Google map. Assuming you are traveling from west to east, you take Potter Road over the new bridge onto Stone Bridge Road. From the new bridge, you can see the old bridge briefly. It's all covered in vines. You follow Stone Bridge Road to Old Stone Bridge Road and you make a left. You backtrack to the entrance of the old stone bridge. As you can see, it's blocked off with a bunch of rubble. I'm at the end of Old Stonebridge Road, which ends right here in this little cul-de-sac. And you can see there's a tiny sign that says Knox Trail, Fort Ticonderoga, New York to Cambridge, Mass. Maybe that's the old stone there, who knows? Obviously, you're not allowed to drive over that anymore. Right, that's facing towards Framingham, so he would have come the other way. I retraced my steps over the new stone bridge and got this picture of the old stone bridge. I couldn't find a place to see the other end of the bridge, just this forest. Moving on to monument number 23, you continue down Stonebridge Road until it reaches Route 126, turn left, and at the intersection of 126 and 27, you'll see monument number 23. It stands by itself on a little wedge of land between routes 126 and 27. There is no place to park and the traffic is moving swiftly. So the only pictures I have of the monument are these as I pass by. I kept turning around and approaching the stone from different angles. To get to the library, you continue north on 27, cross 20, which you will return to later to get to Weston, and then the library is on the right. Here's the library. I'm going to walk out into the front. Pam, the youth services director who'd been super friendly on the phone, was out to lunch, so I left Annie in some shade and dropped off the book. To get to Weston, you then take 20 for a little while, which is also the Boston Post Road. As you near town, the Boston Post Road goes to the left and 20 goes to the right. You take the Boston Post Road. The monument will be to the left in the city's center, right across the street from the fire department. It stands on its own in a tiny triangle on the north side of the street. I took these two photos heading eastward, and then this one looking westward into the town center. The Weston Public Library is about a half-mile away on School Street. It was built much later than when the monuments were put in place. Retracing my steps back to Route 20, I turned right toward Waltham and Massachusetts Monument number 25. It's on the right side of the road where Route 20 merges with 117 and forms Waltham's Main Street. The monument is not in very good shape. You'll notice the upper right corner is peeling away from the stone as if somebody had tried to bend it off. The library was closed. It was so hot that their air conditioning system had broken. To get to Watertown and Massachusetts marker number 26, you continue on Route 20. After passing through the main part of Watertown, you turn left on Highway 16 headed toward Cambridge. Highway 16 is Mount Auburn Street. Set your GPS for the address 481 Mount Auburn Street. It's the address of an old library that is now closed. About a mile and a half up Route 16 on the right, you'll pass School Street. The third building on the right after School Street is the old library. According to the librarian at what is now the Central Library in Watertown, this library closed a couple of years ago, but it must have been important in 1926 when they placed the stone in front of it. As you can see, the monument is leaning to the right. I worry about its future. Moving on to Cambridge, where on January 24, 1776, Henry Knox delivered his noble train of artillery to George Washington. To get there today by car, you continue east on Mount Auburn Street. After the entrance of the Mount Auburn Cemetery, there's a Y in the road. Mount Auburn goes to the right, and you're going to go to the left on Brattle Street. Then you come to another Y where Brattle Street goes to the right, and you continue straight on Craigie Street. Turn right on Concord, which turns into Garden. Then you'll see the Common on your left. The stone faces inward, so all you see is the back of the stone from the street. But it's at the intersection of Mason Street and Garden. Okay, it's raining. Here we are on the Cambridge Commons at the end of the Henry Knox Trail. So that was Garden Street as it goes down into Harvard Yard that way. Here's the Commons. Okay, here we are, finally. Okay, and this is the corner of Mason and Garden. So it's easier for you if you're Mason. Okay. It was getting dark and pouring rain, so I decided to visit the library the following day. It's about a 10-minute walk from the monument to the library. This library was a little intimidating, but it turns out they were happy to receive a story about local history. And this is where my trail ends. It's hard to believe that Henry Knox did this whole trip in 8 weeks. Well, thanks for watching. If you're interested in purchasing my children's book about the Henry Knox Trail, check out henrysbigkaboom.com. See you next time. For a guide to the Henry Knox Trail, check out the Hudson River Valley Foundation.